The 18th of September, 1931. Japan, seeking raw materials to fuel its growing industries, invades Manchuria, an industrial area located in northeastern China, known for its rich mineral and coal reserves. In the following years, there will be various incidents or armed clashes of a limited nature between the Empire of the Rising Sun and the Republic of China. But full-scale war will not break out between the two countries until the Marco Polo Bridge incident on the 7th of July, 1937. This marks the beginning of the Second Sino-Japanese War that will end only with Japan's surrender on the 2nd of September, 1945. During this war, which is the prelude to the Pacific side of World War II, the Japanese army scores major victories, capturing Beijing and Shanghai, and in December of 1937, the Japanese military invades Nanjing, then China's capital. In Nanjing, the Japanese soldiers commit unspeakable atrocities and engage in a campaign of mass killing, which over the course of 2 months will claim the lives of as many as 300,000 civilians and numerous unarmed Chinese soldiers. One of the men responsible for these atrocities is a Japanese army captain, Gunkichi Tanaka. Gunkichi Tanaka was born on the 19th of March, 1905 in Tokyo, Japan. After attending military preparatory schools, Tanaka graduated from the Imperial Japanese Army Academy, which was the principal officers' training school for the Imperial Japanese Army. Wanted to expand their control over Chinese Manchuria, so on the 18th of September 1931, the Japanese planted a small explosive device next to the tracks owned by Japan's South Manchuria Railroad near the city of Mukden. The explosion that followed became known as the Mukden Incident. Though damage to the railway was minimal, it provided an excuse to the Japanese for the speedy and unauthorized capture of Mukden, now Shenyang, and to seize all of the dispute, and the Japanese also maintained their position. As a result, the conflict continued to grow, with larger forces committed by both sides, and fighting spread to other parts of China. Following the Marco Polo Bridge incident, which marked the beginning of the Second Sino-Japanese War, or War of Resistance against Japanese aggression between 1937 and 1945, the Japanese scored major victories, capturing the Soviet Union from Siberia. Since the invasion of Manchuria, there were various incidents or armed clashes of a limited nature between the Empire of Japan and the Republic of China, but all had subsided. However, this changed on the night of the 7th of July, 1937, when a small Japanese force on maneuvers near the Marco Polo Bridge demanded entry to the tiny walled town of Wanping in order 1945, after the Japanese Emperor Hirohito had announced the unconditional surrender of the Japanese military 3 days earlier. The Japanese army invaded Manchuria without the approval of the civilian government in Japan and without declarations of war, breaching the rules of the League of Nations. There were two major reasons for the invasion. The first reason was that Japan had a highly developed industry and is often regarded as the battle where World War II started. Gunkichi Tanaka took part in the battle as a company commander in the 6th Division's 45th Regiment. After over 3 months of extensive fighting on land, in the air, the city of Nanjing to surrender within 24 hours, promising no mercy if the offer was refused. No response was received from the Chinese by the deadline on the 10th of December, and the General Iwane Matsui waited another hour before issuing the command to take Nanjing by force. On the 12th of December, under heavy artillery fire and aerial bombardment, General Tang Shengqi, the commander of the Nanjing garrison during the city's siege, who had earlier announced the city would not surrender and would fight to the death, ordered his men to retreat. What followed was nothing short of chaos. Some Chinese soldiers stripped civilians of their clothing in a desperate attempt to blend in, and many others were shot by the Chinese at that period alone. Many atrocities were reported to have been committed as the Japanese army advanced from Shanghai to Nanjing. Perhaps the most notorious atrocity was a killing contest between two Japanese officers, Toshiaki Mukai and Tsuyoshi Noda, as reported in the Tokyo newspaper. The contest, a race between the two officers to see who could kill 100 people first using only a sword, was covered much like a sporting event, with regular updates on the score over a series of days. The Japanese military training curriculum included college-level general education courses, traditional martial arts, and horsemanship. After completing the 2-year junior portion of training at Asaka and Saitama, cadets were assigned for 8 months to infantry regiments to become familiar with army weaponry and platoon leadership skills, before resuming studies in the 1-year 8-month senior program at Sagamihara in Kanagawa. Upon graduation, Cadets became apprentice officers in the Chinese supervisory unit as they tried to flee. On the 13th of December, the 6th and 116th Divisions of the Japanese Army were the first to enter the city, facing little military resistance. From the 13th of December 1937, the Japanese Army, including Captain Gunkichi Tanaka, engaged in random murder, wartime rape, looting, arson, and other war crimes. They hunted down and killed suspected Chinese soldiers and summarily arrested thousands of young Chinese men. Many innocent men were misidentified and killed in the 23rd of August to the 26th of October 1937, during which the Japanese launched amphibious landings on the Jiangsu coast, and two armies fought a Stalingrad-like house-to-house battle, with the Japanese attempting to gain control of the city and the surrounding regions. The last stage, ranging from the 27th of October to the end of November 1937, involved the retreat of the Chinese army in the face of Japanese flanking maneuvers, and the ensuing combat on the road to China's capital, Nanjing. The Japanese general Iwane Matsui, who drove the Japanese army from Shanghai and had the 10th Army with which he would capture Nanjing under his command, made it clear to his superiors that he was Nanjing, Shanghai, and the Chinese capital of Nanjing in 1937, which resulted in the Nanjing Massacre, also known as the Rape of Nanjing. The Battle of Shanghai, which lasted from the 13th of August 1937 to the 26th of November the same year, was one of the largest and bloodiest battles of the entire war. It was later described as Stalingrad on the Yangtze. Foreigners in Nanjing created the Nanjing Safety Zone, managed by the International Committee for the Nanjing Safety Zone, led by German businessman and Nazi Party member John Rabe. The zone and the activities of the International Committee were responsible for safely harboring 250,000 Chinese civilians from death and violence during the Nanjing Massacre. It was a safe haven in the city for women, children, and other non-combatants. The Chinese troops did respect the zone to an extent. Until the Japanese occupation, no shells entered that part of the city, except for a few stray shots. During the chaos following the attack of the city, all the cities along the railroad. Despite Chinese opposition, the Japanese continued to advance, and by the 27th of February 1932, the last Chinese opposing the Japanese were forced to surrender, and all of Manchuria was in Japanese hands. A few days later, on the 1st of March, the Japanese established the puppet state of Manchukuo, which was dissolved only on the 18th of August 19, with a grade of sergeant major, but who were treated as officers, and after the successful completion of 4 months probation in their assigned regiments, were formally commissioned as second lieutenants. Conflict in Asia between Japan and China began with the invasion of Manchuria, well before the official start of World War II. As part of earlier treaty agreements, the Japanese had troops protecting the railroad in southern Manchuria. However, Japan, but the land was scarce of natural resources. As a result, it turned to Chinese Manchuria for oil, coal, rubber, lumber, and other raw materials in order to make up for the lack of resources in Japan. The second reason was that Japan saw Manchuria as a buffer state against encroachments of its interests by the search for one of their soldiers. However, the Chinese garrison in the town refused the Japanese entry. A shot was heard, and the two sides began firing. The Chinese government, under strong anti-Japanese pressure, refused to make any concessions in the negotiation, and at sea, the Battle of Shanghai concluded with a victory for Japan. The battle can be divided into 3 stages, and eventually involved nearly 1 million troops. The first stage lasted from the 13th to the 22nd of August 1937, during which the National Revolutionary Army of the Republic of China attempted to eradicate Japanese troop presence in downtown Shanghai. The second stage lasted from determined to capture the capital city of China, Nanjing, which lay 300 kilometers west of Shanghai. Matsui forcefully asserted that the war with China would not end until Nanjing was under their control, and he envisaged that the fall of Nanjing would result in the total collapse of Chiang Kai-shek's government. Although the massacre is generally described as having occurred over a 6-week period after the fall of Nanjing, the crimes committed by the Japanese army were not limited. They continued to move forward, breaching the last lines of Chinese resistance and arriving outside the city gates of Nanjing on the 9th of December. With the reports of Japanese brutality, most of the civilian population of Nanjing had already fled out of fear. Wealthy families were the first to flee, leaving Nanjing in automobiles, followed by the evacuation of the middle class and then the poor, while only the destitute lowest class, such as the ethnic Tanka boat people, remained behind. 3/4 of the population had fled Nanjing before the Japanese arrived. Some were killed in the safety zone, but the crimes that occurred in the rest of the city were far greater by all accounts. At noon, on the 9th of December, the Japanese military dropped leaflets into the city, urging